I was down in Virginia, as a matter of fact, when he was running for the U.S. Senate, and I went and spoke to a lot of grassroots individuals and told them who Oliver North was. And basically, he was one of 2 Republicans that lost that year after the Republicans took control of the whole thing. But he had about $34 million. He had money to run for the presidency. And that was his plan, but he lost.
Wow, so where would that money have come from, do you figure?
Well, the drug trade, and of course, they found a lot of money hidden in his closets and so forth, and of course he was saying that it was donations from, because they were after him, and cartels were trying to get him because of Noriega, and so forth, but bottom line was he is a convicted felon. He was arrested, and then he was...
So he's basically responsible for bringing tons of cocaine into the American inner city.
Exactly. They saturated the country with the crack epidemic. And, of course, Ricky Ross down in L.A. Took custody of all the crack, and he cornered the market and became the Walmart of crack. And that's why we still have...
Why him?
Well, because
he was a nobody for
He was a nobody. He was making $3, $4, $5 million a day. What happened was his source was... Danilo Blandon, who was a CIA asset.
Daniel Blandon?
Yes. So they offered him, they gave him the drugs so he could sell, and then he could pay later whenever he sold the drugs. Mm-hmm. And what Ricky Ross did was he made it from cocaine, hydrochloride into crack, and then it went out to, of course, all over California, and then he went all over the country.
Now, you would know better than most, and I know it is, but explain to people what the difference between powder cocaine and crack cocaine is. What do they do to make that?
Well, what they do is they go back a step, and they take the hydrochloride off in the sense that they make it into, they use the ether, and it's kind of a raw, and that's why crack is so strong, because you have a lot of the ether in there. And that's what really...
And that ether comes from the process of...
Well, the process, when the first stages, what they call is pasta lavada, or the cocaine that's coming out of the jungles, it's raw, and they make it like into hard softballs, and then they bring it down to the labs in Colombia, and in Colombia is where they produce it into hydrochloride.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, and you saw those labs?
Absolutely. I got thousands of pictures. I was an avid photographer down there, so I took pictures of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So.
And you took pictures of people being killed by the DEA?
Yes.
Wow. So what happens when you show these pictures and make your testimony? Do you ever get asked?
Well, I did. House Select Committee on Intelligence.
What did they think when they heard all
Well, they were, of course, they knew because they had John Kerry that did a bipartisan investigation on the Contras involving drug trafficking, and of course
How was Kerry's report?
Well, Kerry's report came to a point that he said assets of the CIA were involved, and I go as far as saying that the CIA themselves were involved directly into it, because I was there and I saw it. Now, when John Kerry was trying to get a hold of me to go testify before his committee, the DEA would not let me close the files, because if it's an open file, they can't have access to it.
Right.
So that's how they went around trying to get me to go up there and testify.
So you did get a chance to testify?
Well, I talked to him. I talked to John Kerry's people, and then what I did was I went to Lawrence Walsh's Iran-Contra investigation and gave him the information. And of course, Lawrence said to me that he had compromised with the government. His job was to investigate the sale of the missiles to Iran, and that was it. He wasn't going to touch the drug issue.
Wow. And why? And you know, I haven't seen any politicians really speak out against this. Yet many of them say they're against drugs and against the drug trade, but I have not heard a member of the American government ever come out and say our CIA and our DEA are involved in massive drug running.
Well, there's some, like John Kerry actually came out and said that, and it's very well documented. A lot of films that he's done, and Dennis Crescentage is another one.
Dennis is great. We love him.
Yeah, Dennis. I worked for him down in Texas when he first ran, and I opened up for him a couple of times on the tour, and basically that's what I did. I talked to him about what our government did, and a lot of people were very supportive, and that's why
you're on Alex Jones's show a lot.
Yes, sir.
What's that called? I see Alex Jones in movies like A Scanner Darkly, but I don't know about a show. But I know it's done out of Austin, and he has you as a guest every now and then.
Yeah, yes, he does. So we go on the show and we talk about the war on drugs, the assassinations, the CIA complicit in drug trafficking, our government, our shadow government, and he actually speaks a lot about, and he has a lot of other people that come along, and the war on drugs, why it's failed and why it continues to fail, why we have more people being incarcerated, nonviolent violators, you know.
And what other have you ever met John McCain?
No, I have not.
Okay. Ron Paul?
Yes, I have.
You met Ron Paul. Did you get a chance to tell him what goes on?
Yes, I did. In Austin, one time he had a rally, and I went up there and I talked to him one-on-one, and I told him about the Republicans' little thing going on back in the 80s, and he says, I understand and I realize, and he talked about him talking with other congressmen and senators, John Torricelli, for example, who was out of New York City, who did a lot of human rights issues down in Central America.
Now, let's go back to School of the Americas. The United States at Fort Benning, Georgia, has a big training school, and they've been training people for over 40 years now, and many of the people they've trained to become torturers and heads of secret police and death squads throughout Asia and especially Latin America. Now, it's still operating to this day, and they do train people in torture and interrogation there. But how do you feel about George Bush constantly reiterating that they don't torture?
Well,
they train torture. Thousands of them.
He's a liar, and the only reason I call him a liar is because I was there. I was down in South America and Central America. As a matter of fact, back in 1986, they had a international counter intelligence conference in Guatemala City, and they invited all heads of the counterintelligence units in the military and the police to Guatemala, paid by the CIA, and they actually had a demonstration of live humans, how to torture them, and they filmed the whole thing. So, and most of the guys were graduates of the School of the Americas. We actually sent them to the U.S. via the DEA or via the State Department Narcotics Unit or whatever. But they all went to the School of the Americas, where they were taught how to torture people. They come back and they train the people, their own people, how to torture people.
Were you over there? Did you ever watch someone being tortured?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? Under how many circumstances?
Well, several circumstances, and I wrote down reports, and I did a story with...
Give me an example of torture.